Washington, D.C., 2022. The marble lobby of Capital General Hospital gleamed with cold perfection as 11-year-old Annabelle Cox stumbled through the sliding doors, her arms straining under the weight of her 5-year-old brother Marcus. His small body burned with fever against her chest, his breathing shallow and labored.
"Please,"
Annabelle's voice cracked as she approached the reception desk.
"My brother can't breathe right. He needs help now."
The receptionist barely glanced up from her computer.
"Insurance card or payment up front. Hospital policy."
"We don't have insurance," Annabelle whispered, tears streaming down her face.
"But he's really sick. Please."
"The free clinic opens tomorrow at 8 a.m. You'll need to come back then." Behind them in line, Edison Thompson, billionaire tech mogul in an impeccable charcoal suit, watched the scene unfold. His steel-gray eyes narrowed as the receptionist reached for the phone, presumably to call security. Marcus whimpered, "It hurts, Belle." The sound of that small voice triggered something in Edison's memory, a flash of his own daughter's face, years ago, before everything changed. If you've ever watched injustice unfold and felt powerless to stop it, what happens next will restore something you thought was lost. Tell us where you're watching from. Your witness matters. Edison stepped forward, and his next words would shatter the receptionist's composure entirely. 3 years earlier, Edison Thompson had stood in a different hospital, watching his 12-year-old daughter Sophia struggle for breath. Bacterial pneumonia, the doctors had said, treatable if caught early. But the emergency room had made them wait 4 hours while they verified insurance coverage, debated which specialist to call, processed paperwork. By the time Sophia received treatment, it was too late. Edison had built a technology empire worth $8 billion, had revolutionized 3 industries, could move markets with a single tweet. Yet none of that power had saved his daughter when bureaucracy and profit margins mattered more than a child's life. The grief had nearly destroyed his marriage. His wife, Rachel, had blamed him for working late that night, for not being home when Sophia first got sick. They'd divorced within a year, both drowning in guilt and loss. Since then, Edison had buried himself in work, building walls around his heart, convinced that emotion was weakness and that the system couldn't be changed. But now, watching Annabelle Cox plead for her brother's life while a receptionist cited hospital policy, those walls began to crack. The memory of Sophia's last words echoed in his mind. "Daddy, why won't they help me?" Edison's hands clenched into fists. "This child will receive treatment immediately," Edison announced, his voice cutting through the hospital lobby like a blade. "Or this hospital won't exist tomorrow." The receptionist, Jennifer Mills, looked up sharply. Recognition flashed across her face. Everyone in D.C. knew Edison Thompson's face from business magazines and political fundraisers. "Mr. Thompson, I'm simply following hospital protocols." "Protocols that let children die?" Edison's voice remained calm but carried an edge that made nearby patients stop and stare. "Not acceptable." He pulled out his phone. "I can make 1 call to the hospital board, 1 call to the Washington Post, 1 call to my lawyers. Which would you prefer?" Dr. Michael Chen, the emergency department director, rushed over. "Mr. Thompson, please, there's no need for—" "There's every need." Edison looked down at Annabelle, who stared at him with a mixture of hope and disbelief. "What's your brother's temperature?" 104 degrees this morning, Annabelle whispered. "He's been sick for 3 days. Our mom works 2 jobs. She couldn't leave or they'd fire her. I brought him here on the bus." Edison's jaw tightened. 3 days. Just like Sophia. Dr. Chen examined Marcus quickly, his expression growing grave. "Get me a pediatric team now," he barked to a nurse. "Respiratory distress, possible pneumonia." But as nurses rushed Marcus away on a gurney, Jennifer Mills picked up her desk phone with a defiant expression. Jennifer Mills connected to hospital administration, her voice low but urgent. "Security, we have a situation. Edison Thompson is threatening the hospital. He's trying to force treatment for an uninsured patient." Within minutes, Gerald Morrison, Capital General's CEO, appeared with 2 security guards. Morrison's expensive suit and practiced smile masked his alarm at finding Edison Thompson in his emergency room. "Mr. Thompson, what a surprise. I understand there's been some confusion." "No confusion," Edison interrupted. "Your staff refused emergency treatment to a critically ill child because of insurance status. That's a federal EMTALA violation." Morrison's smile tightened. "I'm sure we can resolve this matter privately. Perhaps we could discuss this in my office." "There's nothing private about letting children die in waiting rooms," Edison's voice carried across the lobby. Patients pulled out phones, recording everything. "That boy needs treatment now." Morrison noticed the phones, calculating the PR disaster unfolding. "Of course, we'll treat the child. That was never in question. But Mr. Thompson, perhaps we should discuss your recent interest in hospital protocols. Your company does significant business with federal healthcare programs." The implied threat hung in the air. Morrison was suggesting Edison's interference could jeopardize his government contracts. Annabelle, standing beside Edison, suddenly grabbed his sleeve. "Please, don't let them make you stop helping. My brother needs—" The alarm suddenly blared from the emergency treatment area where Marcus had been taken. "Code Blue Pediatrics!" The announcement echoed through the hospital as medical staff sprinted toward the emergency bay where Marcus lay. Annabelle broke free from Edison's grip, running after them. A nurse tried to stop her, but Edison followed, using his commanding presence to push through hospital security. Through the treatment room window, they watched doctors work frantically on Marcus's small body. His oxygen levels had crashed. The 3-day delay in treatment had allowed the infection to spread to his lungs and bloodstream. "Sepsis," Dr. Chen said grimly, emerging from the room. "Another few hours and we would have lost him." Annabelle's legs buckled. Edison caught her before she fell, holding the trembling girl as she sobbed. "This is my fault," she whispered. "I should have brought him sooner. I should have—" "No." Edison's voice was firm. "This is the system's fault, a system that prioritizes money over lives." Dr. Chen looked at Edison with a mixture of respect and wariness. "Mr. Thompson, Marcus is stable now, but he'll need intensive care for several days. The cost without insurance—" "I'll cover everything," Edison said without hesitation. "And I want a full investigation into why this child was denied treatment." Morrison had followed them, his expression dark. "Mr. Thompson, your generosity is admirable, but you can't simply circumvent hospital procedures. If you've ever felt the weight of a broken system crushing the most vulnerable, staying with us now is how we fight back together. Tell us where you're watching from. Every voice strengthens what comes next." Edison turned to Morrison, and his next words would change everything about how Capital General operated. "Here's what's going to happen," Edison said, his voice deadly calm. "You're going to pull every record of patients turned away from this emergency room in the past 3 years. Every uninsured patient, every delay, every case where paperwork mattered more than care." Morrison's face paled. "That information is confidential, and I'm going to have my team analyze it against health outcomes, deaths, complications, preventable suffering." Edison pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "My lawyers are already filing FOIA requests, but you can make this easier or harder on yourself." "You're threatening legal action against one of the country's premier hospitals?" "I'm demanding accountability for a system that killed my daughter and nearly killed this girl's brother." Edison's voice cracked slightly before hardening again. "And I'm prepared to spend every dollar of my fortune making sure it doesn't happen again." Annabelle watched this exchange with wide eyes, her hand gripping Edison's sleeve like a lifeline. Dr. Chen stepped between them. "Gentlemen, perhaps we should discuss this away from—" His words were cut off as a hospital security team arrived, led by a D.C. police officer. Morrison had called in law enforcement. "Mr. Thompson," the officer said carefully, recognizing the billionaire, "hospital administration has requested you leave the premises. You're causing a disruption." Edison stood his ground. "I'm not leaving until I know this child will receive proper care." The officer looked uncomfortable, caught between a powerful businessman and hospital protocol. Suddenly, Annabelle stepped forward, her young voice surprisingly strong.
"My name is Annabelle Cox," she said, looking directly at the police officer. "I'm 11 years old. 3 days ago, my brother Marcus got sick. My mom couldn't leave work because we need money for rent and food, so I took care of him." Her voice trembled but didn't break. "I gave him medicine from the store. I put cold cloths on his head. But he kept getting worse. This morning, he couldn't breathe right, and I got scared." The gathering crowd in the hospital lobby had grown quiet, everyone listening. "I brought him here on the bus. I had $47 in my pocket, all the money I've saved from helping neighbors. I offered it to the lady at the desk." Annabelle pointed to Jennifer Mills. "She said it wasn't enough. She said to come back tomorrow to a free clinic." Annabelle's eyes filled with tears. "If Mr. Thompson hadn't been here, my brother would have died in your waiting room, just like his daughter did 3 years ago. How many other kids are going to die because they can't pay?" The officer's expression shifted. Several people in the crowd pulled out their phones, recording Annabelle's testimony. Morrison's face had gone from pale to red. "This is completely inappropriate. Using a child to tell the truth?" Edison finished. "Yes, it is inappropriate. It's inappropriate that she had to." Dr. Chen's pager suddenly buzzed urgently. He checked it, his face draining of color. "We have 3 more pediatric cases in the waiting room," he said quietly. "All uninsured. All displaying symptoms similar to—" Before he could finish, Jennifer Mills interrupted with devastating timing. "I kept records," Jennifer Mills said suddenly, her voice shaking. Everyone turned to stare at the receptionist. "I kept records of every patient I was told to turn away or delay. I was following orders, but I documented everything." She pulled a USB drive from her pocket. Names, dates, medical conditions, insurance status, 3 years of data. I thought maybe someday someone would care enough to look. Morrison lunged forward, but Edison was faster, taking the USB drive from Jennifer's trembling hand. "You're fired," Morrison snarled at the receptionist. "Security, escort her out immediately." "No," Edison said firmly. "Jennifer stays. She's a witness." He looked at the USB drive, then at Dr. Chen. "Doctor, those 3 pediatric cases in the waiting room, are they being seen?" Dr. Chen hesitated, glancing at Morrison. "They're being processed through our standard intake protocols," Morrison said carefully, "which means they're being delayed while you verify insurance." Edison translated. "While children suffer." He turned to the police officer. "I'm not leaving this hospital until every sick child in that waiting room receives immediate medical screening, regardless of their ability to pay. If you want to arrest me for that, then arrest me." The officer looked at his radio, clearly receiving instructions from his superiors. Someone had recognized the PR nightmare unfolding and was advising caution. Annabelle pulled on Edison's sleeve again. "Mr. Thompson, can I see my brother now? Is he going to be okay?" Before Edison could answer, Dr. Chen's pager buzzed again. He looked at it and his expression turned grim. "We have a problem. Marcus is crashing again." Edison and Annabelle raced after Dr. Chen to Marcus's room. Through the observation window, they could see the medical team working frantically. The boy's small body convulsed as doctors fought to stabilize him. "His body is in shock from the infection," Dr. Chen explained, his voice tight with professional concern. "The delayed treatment means the bacteria spread too far. We're doing everything we can." Annabelle pressed her hands against the glass, silent tears streaming down her face. Edison stood beside her, his own memories of watching Sophia die flooding back with crushing force. "This is exactly what happened to my daughter," he said quietly. "The delay, the infection spreading, the desperate attempts to save her when it was too late." He turned to Morrison, who had followed them. "How many, Gerald? How many children has this hospital turned away or delayed treating? How many families have stood exactly where I'm standing, watching their children die?" Morrison's face was stone. "Healthcare is complicated, Mr. Thompson. There are financial realities." "Financial realities?" Edison's voice rose. "We're talking about children's lives." Suddenly, Annabelle screamed. Marcus had flatlined. The monitor showed a flat line as doctors initiated CPR on the 5-year-old. "No, no, no," Annabelle sobbed, pounding on the glass. "Marcus, please." Edison pulled her into his arms as she collapsed, holding the girl while her world shattered. The doctors worked for 2 minutes, 3, 4. The flat line continued. Dr. Chen looked toward the window, his expression devastated, preparing to call time of death. Then, impossibly, the monitor beeped. Marcus's heartbeat returned, weak but steady. The medical team continued treatment as the boy stabilized. Within minutes, he was breathing on his own again, his eyes fluttering open. Annabelle was allowed into the room, holding her brother's hand. "I'm here, Marcus. I'm here." The small boy looked up at his sister. "Belle, I had a bad dream." "I know, baby. But you're okay now. You're going to be okay." Edison watched through the window, his vision blurred with tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed since Sophia's death. But this time, the ending was different. This time, the child survived. Dr. Chen approached him. "Mr. Thompson, I've made a decision. I'm testifying about the hospital's practices. Everything I've witnessed over the past 2 years. It's time someone with credibility spoke up." Edison nodded, still watching Annabelle with her brother. "I'm buying this hospital." Morrison, standing nearby, laughed bitterly. "Capital General isn't for sale. The board would never. The board will do exactly what I tell them to do once my lawyers present evidence of systematic EMTALA violations, potential criminal negligence, and civil rights violations." Edison's voice was calm but absolute. "I'm not asking permission. I'm giving you a choice. Sell to me voluntarily, or I'll destroy this institution's reputation so completely that you'll be begging me to buy it for pennies." He looked at Morrison directly. "And then I'm going to transform every emergency room protocol. No child will ever be turned away. No family will ever have to choose between bankruptcy and saving their child's life. Not here. Not in any hospital I control." Over the next 6 months, Edison Thompson did exactly that. He purchased Capital General, fired its entire executive leadership, and implemented revolutionary emergency care protocols that prioritized medical need over financial status. The USB drive Jennifer Mills provided led to federal investigations at 17 hospitals across the country. 8 administrators, including Gerald Morrison, faced criminal charges for healthcare fraud and negligence. Annabelle Cox became a national symbol of healthcare reform. At 11 years old, she testified before Congress about her experience, her testimony broadcast across the country. But the most important transformation happened quietly. Marcus recovered fully, and Edison established a scholarship fund to ensure Annabelle could pursue her dream of becoming a doctor. "Why are you doing all this?" Annabelle asked Edison one day, visiting him at his new office in the renovated hospital. Edison looked at the photo of Sophia on his desk, then at Annabelle. "Because I couldn't save my daughter. But maybe I can save other people's daughters and sons. Maybe that's how Sophia's life still matters." Annabelle hugged him. "She'd be proud of you." 10 years later, Dr. Annabelle Cox would complete her residency at what had been renamed the Sophia Thompson Memorial Hospital.
carrying forward the legacy of a child who died too young and a billionaire who learned that some things matter more than money. If this story reminded you that one voice, one moment of courage can change an entire system, then carry that forward. The fight for justice needs witnesses, needs people who refuse to look away when systems fail the vulnerable. One last time, tell us where you're watching from, because every comment is a reminder that these stories matter, that change is possible, and that we're all responsible for the world we build together.